Hello guys, welcome back to the What's Your Why podcast, episode number 5, powered by Cognition Media. My name is Colby Shaw. I'm back from a bit of a hiatus, ladies and gentlemen, and we're still rolling through the episodes. We haven't stopped yet. We're at episode number 5. I'm really excited for today's episode. We've got a really, really special guest on. I can't wait to dive deep in kind of their mind and stuff like that. I feel like you guys as viewers will get a lot out of this. So Sean, welcome onto the podcast. How are you feeling?
I am feeling ecstatic after that intro.
that was good as well. Awesome.
Appreciate you.
It's so funny because on Saturday we met for the first time, and we mentioned it's kind of like a mini podcast. We had a conversation for probably 2 hours, just about life and business and just about everything. And yeah, it was really interesting just to dive deep into your mind and kind of the ideas and ideologies you have and stuff like that. And I got a lot out of that conversation. So I'm so keen to sit down again today, a couple of days later, and record it because a lot of people will then realize that as well. So I can't wait to dive deep. So yeah.
I appreciate you, man. You. I'm glad that you got a lot out of it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It was really great conversation. So let's roll back a bit. Talk to me about your identity and how that has changed over the years from, I don't know, maybe being an 18-year-old up until now. You know, how have you changed over the years and how has your identity changed with that?
Mate, it's interesting. When I was 18, I'd just left school, didn't complete, got to year 11 and I started to mentally plummet. I was not in a good place. And I unfortunately had to come to the conclusion that, look, I wasn't going to be able to complete my studies. And that was something that started a pretty negative spiral for me. I didn't feel like I was able to accomplish anything, really put me on a pretty negative pathway, and mentally I just began to dwindle pretty rapidly. For the next couple of years, I definitely was not in a good state. I looked for kind of instant gratification in areas that probably weren't sufficient to get me anywhere towards the goals that I had. And I think that's a pretty common place that a lot of us find ourselves in. You know, it'll be one thing that starts to crumble and then it will be a chain reaction, and it's almost the momentum that begins to really put us on a rocky path that sometimes we don't know where it's actually heading. And it is super challenging to cut that cycle. So for me, I was continuing down for a couple of years and I knew that I wasn't serving myself. I wasn't doing anything that was going to really help me to get where I wanted to get to. And I came to a conclusion after a breakup with a partner that that's always the story, isn't it? It's always like some cataclysmic event and you're like, oh my God, what am I doing?
That's all it needs though sometimes, bro.
Absolutely. There's got to be a catalyst. I think that's the biggest thing. There's always a catalyst to create big shifts in your life. And for me, that was one. The opportunity arose and I reflected on my life and realized that if I didn't change my projected pathway of where I was going, it was really, I was not going to be satisfied. I was not going to be stoked. I was not going to be happy. And I already wasn't proud of the path that I put myself on. So this allowed me to completely dive directly headfirst into a life with photography. So photography for me really initially was the opportunity to shift my entire perspective from one that was super pessimistic into an opportunity to see a little bit of beauty in the world. And again, that was a massive catalyst. That began the entire process of me shifting from this pessimistic perspective into one that was, I don't want to say enlightened, but it allowed me to see the world in a much more optimistic perspective. So through that transition, picking up a camera gave me hope and it gave me an opportunity to really give myself a new path. And at the end of the day, that's why I am so passionate when it comes to everything about photography, videography, social media, content. Like I had absolutely nothing and I was in a not great place, picked up a camera and it gave me all the opportunities that I ever needed. So that's why I'm very, very passionate about it.
Wow. I love the vulnerability from the start. Thank you so much for diving in a little bit about that. That's super inspiring as well Talk to me about, you mentioned when you left school and you realized studying wasn't for you, you kind of spiraled down this, path of, disgratification, you could say. Talk to me about your personal experience on what caused that. And then I want to broaden out to why a lot of people are like that, especially at that young age.
Sure. Look, we're definitely going to go deep here, and I think it is important. You're right about the vulnerability. That is a state that I have found myself continuing to come to, because I think it is important when it comes to connection. I believe that those vulnerable states allow us to truly cut through and connect with other people. So I hope that, if you are listening to this, it gives you a chance to see that you aren't alone, because those periods of our lives where we do feel helpless, they are very commonplace. Now, this isn't a story of just doom and gloom. I don't want it to be a complete podcast of me going down the terrible path of depression and mental health, but it is important for context to understand, I think, how the story evolved and how I've got to where I am now.
For sure.
Because it's not an uncommon thing, and a lot of us do face it. So throughout my adolescence, throughout high school, I continued to be cyclical in nature. So I would have 6 months of just feeling elated, fantastic, like crushing it in my own mind, academically excelling, doing a ton of sport, like absolutely loving it. And then there'd usually be a period of a few months throughout the year where I would just drop. I'd feel like absolute shit, like, just atrocious. And it never made any sense to me. It was happening year on year on year, all throughout my adolescence, and it never really made any sense. But I didn't ever do anything about it because I always came out and I was like, sweet, this is cool. I'm back to me, whatever me is, feeling good. So it wasn't something that I ever addressed. And then when it finally came to that point of being almost 18 and realizing that it was still continuing, it was a pattern that I acknowledged came hand in hand with a few other behaviors that probably needed to be addressed. Otherwise, it wasn't gonna again serve me in my future. So I was quite depressed for that period. It gave me an understanding of my own kind of faults, how I responded to these situations, and also offered me the opportunity to address them. Right, I acknowledged that, when I felt really shit, I would go and I would, really roll around in it. Like, I allowed myself to continue in that state of just feeling atrocious because it was my native state. It was where I felt most comfortable. And it also meant that I didn't have to address the pain. So I finally went through, ended up seeing some psychologists, and they assisted me to understand that, there was something that was more in depth than I initially thought. So turned out I had bipolar, and that was something that for me, it made so much sense. Like, as soon as it was addressed, I was like, oh, sure, okay, I get it now. Like, it was pretty hard to cop to begin with, but it finally offered me an understanding of what I guess I was missing. And it also allowed me, it wasn't an instant response of, holy shit, I have bipolar, this is something that I can use to my advantage. But over time, I allowed that to be a strength. And I think it was very, very tough through the first few years when I had been diagnosed, but it gave me a chance to see the positive side of it when I was actually in almost a hypomanic state, when I was performing, when, I was, in my own mind, excelling academically, as I mentioned. And I kind of saw an opportunity in that. Because there were so many times where I felt fantastic and I performed at a level where I believed it was, more than sufficient. So I then, from that moment, wanted to put myself on a path that saw the positive in the negative and really gave me an opportunity to utilize the strengths that I could acquire from this thing that was always perceived as a super, super negative state of mind and mental health condition. And that's not to discredit anyone who has it. Of course, everybody everybody's journey is different, but for me, the only option that I gave myself was to utilize it as a strength.
Wow. That's powerful. How can you change like your mindset to perceive something that by society is considered, a mental health, order or disorder or whatever you want to call it? How do you change your mindset to use it, like you said, as a strength? Because that is powerful.
For sure. I think one of the biggest things that often occurs as soon as, so let's say you're out there and you've just been diagnosed with bipolar and your world feels like it's crumbling around you, But the one thing that I very quickly pulled myself up on was very frequently you will hear people say, I am bipolar. You self-label and identify yourself with the entire characteristics and category of being bipolar. And as soon as you associate yourself with that state, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Like really, because everything in almost the media, everything that you ever hear about these mental health conditions is negative. Right? You only ever hear about the people who mismanage the diagnosis, or you only hear about the ones who, unfortunately, it is super, super challenging to, navigate for, and they're unfortunately not able to navigate it. You hear of the struggles, but you don't ever hear of the other side because people don't go to the doctors when they're feeling good. You don't, if you're able to perform at, like 110%, 80% of the time, you don't worry about that 20 because you're just like, I deal with it. I can navigate it. So I think first part is definitely labeling yourself, how you actually label yourself and what you identify yourself to be. Huge component, generally speaking, whether you have a diagnosis of a mental health condition or not, it is who am I to myself. It doesn't matter how anyone else perceives you, because so frequently we will get caught up by what other people say, what other people think, and it's just not important at the end of the day.
So powerful.
It's all your own kind of character reference that is the most important, because that will always end up kind of following you outwards, and people will be able to feel that.
For sure.
Because it doesn't really matter what people think about you at the end of the day. It's what you think about yourself, having the integrity as well, so that you can always continue to act in accordance with how you perceive yourself.
Wow.
It's a super important thing. So I would say that, the identity is a huge component, but it's also just being fucking kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Like when you're in that state, you beat yourself up. You don't feel good, but over time, you got to be kind and say, all right, look, this is something that is to a degree out of my control. The only thing that I can control, of course, everyone hears it, but the only thing that's in my control is my response. How am I going to respond to this? Can I utilize it in some capacity? Because in every situation, there is an opportunity to shift the perspective from a negative to a positive. Like it doesn't matter what it is. And man, like that has been the ultimate unlock for my entire life. Just seeing every situation that I used to see as a negative as a positive, especially when it came to trying to build my own business, dude. Like you would have experienced it yourself.
Yeah, 100%, bro. I think it's a powerful mindset. Staying on like the mental health kind of topic as well, I've suffered and I've been pretty vocal about going through anxiety and depression in my teenage years. And whilst I'm pretty healthy and happy for the most part, now I look back at that time, and as you mentioned, that shifting point for me to get out of that dark period was, how can I change this negative kind of mindset, this negative thought, this negative feeling? Where's the positive that I can find in this? But in saying that, it's not as easy as said than done, because when you're in the trenches, when you're feeling so down and low, it's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah, dude.
But I can guarantee to anyone going through, pardon me, any of that stuff now, it's just reps. If you just try each day, try and get a little bit better at it, you actually rewire your mind to looking for that stuff more often. And
Absolutely, man.
huge
Absolutely.
unlock.
Look, and yeah, if someone is out there right now, if you're out there right now and you are actually superbly struggling with everything, you feel like the world is crumbling around you, you feel the pressure, and to get out of bed each day, it sucks. Like the actual practical steps, if I can give you just direction of exactly what to do, because you can go real high level and say, look, just see everything positive. It's great. The world's fantastic. Like if we're talking full practicality of what can you do? Okay, so first thing, try to the biggest part is when you wake up, the first thought that you have, if you wake up at 12 o'clock in the day and you feel like you've wasted the day, you've set yourself a terrible stage for the rest of the day, because it is completely negative. Like, try and just shift. If you can, get up 5 minutes earlier the next day. Then you build a positive association and you're like, shit, yeah, I did that. You know, it is consistent, very, very minor micro adjustments to your lifestyle so that you feel an element of pride, because then that momentum builds over time. It is just the small, consistent shifts that over 6 months they compound, because it's the self-esteem built through these small, very, very minor micro adjustments. Like, yeah, you might get up at 11 o'clock and then you get up at 10:55 the next day. Like, awesome, I'm on a path toward my own definition of success.
Bang.
You know,
Yeah.
it is important to see all those little things and like actually assess your life and say, what little improvements can I make? And also, if you do one thing that is, 2 steps forward and then you do take 3 steps back, don't focus on the 3 steps back. Focus on the fact that you made that effort and you did go 2 steps forward. It's like, always try as best as you can to train your mind to focus on those small positive wins. And the more that you do focus on, the more that you will see them, the more that you will look for them, and the more that you will create them, because it is that positive feedback loop. All our mind wants is the chemicals that are good for us. And if you can hack that almost and just adjust your life so that you can continue toward putting yourself in a position where your mind is receiving all that it wants, it is that positive feedback loop which creates momentum toward your own definition of success.
Period. Bang. I love that. That's so well said. Thank you for being vulnerable there, because I know it's not an easy thing to do, but God, when you do talk about it, not only is it a relief for yourself, there's a lot of people out there that feel connected to that, and there's always comfort. I can't speak. You feel more comfortable in connection. That's what I'm trying to say.
For sure, dude. Yeah, there is comfortability in connection.
That's what I'm trying to say, yeah.
There's also no... I have complete and utter respect for anybody who is out there and, is vulnerable, is expressive and able to put out to the world what they're going through, because it is super challenging. It's not easy whatsoever. And I never discredit, like, you can't compare what you're going through to somebody else, because the brain doesn't know the difference. You're going through what you're going through. There is never a comparative kind of sense in that. And it's super important to be aware of that, because everyone has their own level of challenges, and it's never easy regardless of who you are.
True, very true. You mentioned kind of throughout your journey you turned to photography, videography and social media and stuff like that. That was your outlet, that was your way. It gave something to you that before you didn't really feel. Talk to me about getting into that and what you're kind of doing now with content strategy and social media and all of that. I want to hear about kind of how that has evolved over the few years and what you're up to now and stuff. For sure.
Look, I think we'll focus on the journey rather than where I'm at now, because there is still so much more that I want to do. I am still in transition. I am still in progress, and I think it's important to really go back to the steps along this journey, because that's what I love. Like, I literally have a smile on my face just thinking about it, because I love it. Like, I love it so much, man. And I believe that there are so many lessons that I've learnt along the way, because I've made so many mistakes that I love sharing it. There's so much that, I've had the opportunity to share with other people and give to other people, which for me, it means so much, because it also means that, you know, sure, it was difficult at the time, but it was even more worthwhile, you know, like going back to that whole thing of focusing on the positives. Man. So let's go back. Let's say photography. How did that begin for me?
Yep.
I was out there, and I am generally a super passionate person.
Yeah, you can tell.
Like if I find something that I love, like I'm into it. So photography was that for me. And because it changed my life, all I wanted to do was share that with others. All I see passion as personally may not be the dictionary's definition, right? But I see passion as something that personally you gain something that is so strong from, or you perform an activity that has given you so much that you just want to share it with other people. Right? That's how I see passion. It's just like, this has offered me something that has really changed my life. I want to share it with other people. So that's exactly what I did. I went through, captured some exceptional sunrises and sunsets. It was this journey and this pursuit of shifting my perspective from very monotonous to, holy shit, there is a world out there that is absolutely beautiful. You know, and because it changed my life, when I could share that with other people, it was something that always came through in my communication of it. So what I started to love more than anything was going to market stalls, you know, doing like door-to-door sales to businesses with my prints, being like, hey, I made this. Look. And half the time I just went up so that I could share with people. I just went up so I could say, this is the story of this image. Here you go. It'd be awesome to have it in your space because it will offer you X, Y, and Z. And it was very much coming from that place of just like, how can I get other people to appreciate their surroundings? Because there's a whole wide world out there, and so often we get so absorbed in what we're doing that we don't even focus. We don't give ourselves that little 5-minute period per day where we're just like, oh my God, stuff around me, it's pretty awesome. It doesn't have to be this whole long, like 1-hour meditation where you sit down and you journal. Yeah. It can just be like looking outside being like, wow, that's cool. That's an awesome bird, you know? Yeah. Like something so simple. But yeah, so coming back, that was what I was doing. I went around to a ton of businesses, just like knocked on doors and had conversations with people. You know, there was a period where, again, I started to plummet mentally for a little section as per cycle, I guess you could say. And I remember there was a period where I knocked on one door and I literally was just like almost mute. Like somebody came to answer the door and I just stared blankly at them. Yeah. Completely choked.
So what, you had your print in your hand?
At the time I was selling calendars. Classic. I used to love a good calendar.
Yeah. Okay, so paint the picture. You've knocked on this door. You've probably done 10 others that same day.
Yep, absolutely. And I just knocked on it. This guy looked at me and he was like, hey, what you doing? And I just had this calendar in my hand. I looked at him and I was like, photos. I do photos. Do you want some? And he was like, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I was like, okay, cool. This is cool. So that was like the initial state of, okay, I can sell something to other people and there is value in that exchange. That was like building a business 101 for me. I had no clue what I was doing, but it was offering me a ton. And again, that was a positive feedback loop because I was like, oh my God, maybe I can do this. So from that state, like after being just completely, mentally stuck for a period, I said to myself, now this comes back to the whole thing of just doing the reps, right? Yes. And there's a place for that. We're going to get into that in a sec. But for me, I just said to myself, all right, all I want to do is hit 25 businesses per day for a month. And that was excessive, super excessive. Like,
yeah, that is a lot.
In a period of a month, I went around to like, oh my God, I can't even remember how many it was, but you can do the calculation. I think it ended up being that I just wanted to knock on as many doors as I possibly could. And I did it for a period of 2 weeks. And at the end of it, I had obliterated all of my anxiety because I just didn't care. Like, it wasn't about the sales. It was just about the fact that I wanted to go wherever I could and connect with people and just have a conversation. You know, like at the time, sure, I was learning, I was absorbing, and like I was almost preparing myself for the journey that I'm on now, but I didn't even know. I was just out there doing what I loved, sharing my passion with other people, didn't care about how many sales I made. You know, it was so exciting for me. And I ended up, you know, there were so many days which it sucked. But
Yeah.
there were so many days that like those small wins where it was like, yeah, I'll buy one. It was like, I don't even remember how much. I think I was selling them for like $40, right?
Yeah.
I was not changing my life by selling these, right? I wasn't making bank.
But bro, I'm sure the experience and the lessons you learnt from the whole, you know, is worth way more than what you probably made or what you could have made, right?
100%, man. 100%.
So how, I want to ask two questions. First and foremost, before that first door knock, what made you want to do that? What was your motive behind, I'm going to go knock on 25 businesses a day and just get in front of people? Because that's a scary thing, man. And
Definitely.
A lot of people, they rather just send an email and be done with it.
Absolutely.
So what made you go, I'm gonna knock on these people's doors?
Look, it was absolutely, I had seen from my experiences when I was out there at the markets, right, and I was talking to people, I acknowledged that for me reduced anxiety massively. I had this period of social anxiety and almost this comfort place of just removing myself from everybody and just going into this isolated state at different periods through my life. And I realized that the best medication for that was to go out there and do it, doing the classic, do the hard thing, right? Like the best anecdote was just to go out there and do it.
Yeah.
So I identified that I had a problem with it. I identified that I wanted to be in this native state of comfort, and the only way that I was going to counteract that was getting out there and doing it. And it did suck. Like, oh my God, when you get a door slammed in your face, like consistently, because I went around, I did it business to business, and then I went business to consumer. I went to, I identified the most expensive areas in Newcastle, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to be this. And I looked like an absolute hooligan. Like, I had long hair, I was wearing a singlet, like I was terrible, but I was just exactly myself. I wasn't trying to be someone that I wasn't. I was just out there knocking on doors, having conversations with people. And there were a lot of people out there as well who were just like, this guy, he's trying his best. It was a bit of pity, I'm not going to lie. Pity sales are the worst sales. But when you're in that state, you're like, yeah, you know.
No, that's so funny, bro. And then my second question is, what changed for you? What did that experience give you, and that momentum, taking that forward into, I'm going to assume, building your business?
To a degree, man, for sure. That was again, there are a few key catalysts in my life, and I think going around to businesses and just getting absolutely rejected, like consistently, it builds, it builds you up. Like, you have a thick skin after that.
100%. And
I really believe that foundation for me, it was pivotal in everything regarding business. Like, I'm not sitting here saying that I am super successful or that I've done anything more than what most people can do, right? There's a lot more that I want to accomplish and that I will accomplish in my life. But those initial stages of business are super damn tough because you have to try to remove yourself from that rejection phase when you are putting something forward, whether that is just a complete like product or a service. When you're beginning, it is like you are putting yourself on a platter for someone to just smack you down, and be like, that is shit.
Yeah. You have to remove ego.
Yeah, dude. Well, I mean, if you got one, you very quickly get it removed for you.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Or it gets removed after the tens of fucking hundreds of rejections you go through. But
exactly that, man. Exactly that. So it gave me a foundation of grit and a layer of perseverance within my own kind of mental state, where I was like, I don't actually really care what anyone says about me. I know that it's not really about me at the end of the day, and if it is, I can't change that.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't change how people are going to see me. I've just got to be, again, like conducive with how I perceive myself and know that my intent is always going to come across. That's what I believe is super important, to know within yourself that you have the best intent, and then that will always be conveyed throughout every point of communication that you have with anybody in the world, I believe, if you are super, super clear on your values and your intent, no matter what it is that you do.
100%, yeah. After, oh man, like for me, like I'll bring up my story. I did a very similar thing. I'd cold call. People have heard the story. I'd sit on the phone for hours upon hours, cold call. I'd even go into business, all that. So similar thing, rejection, went through it. It's actually, you look back on it and we're both smiling
It's
now.
hilarious.
Like it's I'll do it again, bro, because it's fun. You
100%.
learn so much about yourself. After those first 5 no's, 6 no's, 10 no's, what did you feel like, if you can remember, but like more importantly, what made you go, I'm just going to keep going? Because most people, man, after like 1 or 2 no's, they would just say, oh, well, this isn't it.
Yeah, man.
Stuff this, throw in the towel. So what made you, like, was you back against the wall where you're like, I'm just going to make this work no matter what? I got a point to prove to myself.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah. It was very much a point to prove to myself. Like I knew that I could do it, and it was. So let's pull it back a second. So when it comes to doing the reps right and going in and just doing it consistently, there is one way where you focus on volume. There is another way where you focus on progress. There are times in my life where I've just focused on volume and I have not given a shit about what I actually do while I'm performing the activity. And that is so imperative to be aware of. Because if you're focused on building the self-esteem of doing the discipline, of performing the act, that is what purpose it serves. It serves the purpose of, I can do this. But if you're focused on skill development and improving, that's a distinct shift when you're actually performing the activity, because you have to take every single point of feedback from that, analyze it, and then implement. It is the iteration. But first, you got to perform. You got to know that you can do it. So it is first discipline. I am going to go out there and perform. And then once you've built that thick skin, you've built the awareness that you can and the self-esteem that you believe you're able to continue, that's where you start to iterate. You say, all right, I did X and this was the output. How can I not do that next time and improve? Or how can I do something different and it still be shit?
Yeah.
You know, like how many micro adjustments can I make throughout that? If I'm selling something, at what point is it that somebody is being like, that's not for me? It is like objection handling, but at volume and at scale. And again, like I didn't do a great job. I'm not out here saying that I made like millions selling calendars, you know what I mean? But again, that wasn't the plan. I knew in that kind of moment that I just wanted to perform the act and do whatever I could to kind of build these skills. And that's all it was about for me. Like I really loved that process. I almost manufactured an opportunity for self-improvement because of how I created a positive feedback loop for my own, again, those chemicals in your brain, your dopamine and serotonin, just continuing to loop. So when you do that thing, you go back, do it again. And you want more of the hard thing, quote unquote.
Definitely. And man, does it feel good when you get a sale.
Yeah.
Oh, that becomes addictive, that feeling.
100%.
When someone says yes after 100 no's, that is what, in my experience, I chased.
Yeah, dude.
So like I would go through 100 no's to get 1 yes, and I would go through 100 more to just hear that like yes again. Like I became obsessed with that. So yeah, no, I love that. While we're on the topic of sales,
Sure. I'm not sitting here saying that I'm a sales expert either, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just someone who has done the thing. I am not saying that I'm out here with all the answers.
No,
you know what I mean?
I know, but it'll be interesting to just get your kind of, your thoughts and even experience in this sector. And we spoke a little bit about it on Saturday, but what has sales given you in life and taught you about yourself? And then just break down sales 101, like your approach, or just sales to the listeners. How can someone sell?
Sure.
Because there might be someone listening that go, I want to do something like that.
Yeah.
So maybe give them some sauce and some tips.
Sure. So when it comes to selling something, I just mentioned that everybody always has this underlying communication of your intent. That comes through in every aspect of when you are selling. So really, I see selling as just, in many cases, it is an education process, right? You're not trying to actually just steal from somebody. It is, it's a transaction of value. You are someone who can provide this client or this consumer with an opportunity to get them to a state which is going to be beneficial for them.
For sure.
Especially when it comes to business sales, right? You are somebody who can provide this client with an opportunity to get to their goals. You've just got to make sure that when you're in that interaction, you're educating yourself on whether you can serve them, and B, you can also take that and educate them on how they can actually get there and beyond. So that whole process of selling is just an education process. It is not some slimy thing that, like, because when you're starting out, you get super scared. It is so damaging as well when you're going to do it and then you pull up the phone and then you put it back down, or you have like a sales meeting that is coming up and you postpone it. And usually that comes from, it is a feeling that you have in your throat where you can't swallow. It is just like you can't even talk, you can't communicate. And usually that comes from the fact that you don't know what you're giving your client. Like, it makes sense that you are not educated in what you're providing because you don't actually know what value you're giving. You got to be super clear on, I think, how you articulate your value. And really, at the end of the day, it is understanding the psychology of those that you want to serve and knowing that you can solve a problem for them.
Bang. I was hoping you mentioned that. Yeah.
It's all psychology, man. Like, if I can say one thing,
not even that, just the problem solving.
Yeah.
Like, why would someone want to pay them hard-earned money to you? Are you going to solve their problems?
Absolutely. Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
100%. But what is that problem?
Yeah, exactly. You got to find that.
What's the pain point for people? Because if you're out there and it isn't, like, again, when you start talking about pain points, it usually has this negative association. But the reality is, like, if you're solving a problem for a company that is earning like $5,000 a month, or you're solving a problem for a company that is earning like $5 million a month, it's going to be drastically different. And everyone says that, and it almost just feels like, again, some guru bullshit. But it's the reality. Like, if that business is not solving their problem, they are potentially losing 10% of revenue. That exists across both businesses. One that is earning 5,000, one that is earning 5 mil. Like, it's drastically different. And I don't say that for any reason other than when it comes to content creators, we usually put ourselves into a category, or when I say content creators, it is anyone in that creative industry, right? You put yourself into a category of where you know and what you believe you can provide and what problems you can solve, and then you just sit in that little corner because you feel comfortable, you know that you can do it, which is fantastic, but usually we just stay there, which is fine if that's what you want to do. You can sit there, you can just continue to solve those problems because you're confident you can do it. Amazing. But there is an opportunity outside of that. And sometimes it is like this distant land where there's like a big wall up and you can't actually see it correctly. And, there's someone like standing on the wall like, you can do it. And they're like, I don't know, man. Like throwing down the rope and you're trying to just like jump up and grab on, but you can't. It's like, it's scary to take that next leap because we have the limiting belief usually that we aren't able to, or we aren't valuable enough. And it comes back to usually a self-esteem issue and a personal belief issue. rather than the fact that you can't do it. You know?
Definitely. I mentioned this at the start, but I loved your whole analogy on sales and stuff, and hopefully the people listening, watching now got something out of that, because sales is important, especially when you're building a business. And I just challenge anyone listening to go out, show your face, get rejected, best thing. What has sales given you, Bob?
What has sales given me? Look,
Or what has it taught you?
sales has definitely taught me a lot, but I think I don't think that I even see sales as sales anymore. I really don't. Like, I see it as all one network. I don't see it as an individual part of the process, right? Like, you got very core aspects of a business, right? You got sales / marketing. They're usually properly separated, and then you got delivery. But outside of that, like, everything kind of just goes down to those main things. And if you actually go in and you look at the whole sales process as just, this is putting my entire business, the entire service in front of that person, that's selling. Like, it is not sales, it is just education. It is presenting more than anything. It is just saying, this is what we do.
Yep.
You know, like, I don't think that it is a very clear distinction. Of course, when you get into like a large company, it has to be, but I don't see it as one thing that is just completely separated. I believe that it's all the ecosystem of business, and it is just a part of that process. It's just like, here you go, you're coming through, and it is not selling to you. It is just, this is like you knocking at the door. And as soon as you open the door, you're on that process of going through into the delivery mechanism. You know, sure, marketing allows you to come to that door, so you kind of throw up your hands. You're like, hey, I'm out here, I'm doing my thing. Come see if I can do it for you. But as soon as they knock on that door, ideally, your marketing and your delivery is so strong that your sales process is just a matter of saying, look, you know what I can do at this point. You're here for a reason. I've attracted you because you, A, have heard about what I can do, ideally, or you've seen the results that I can provide to other people. You know, come on through. See if it's for you. If it's not, fantastic. I'm going to, you know, ideally get you to someone who can actually solve your problems. Like, that's the big thing. I think if we're going to go and stay on this path of like content creators, social media, all of that kind of, because that's where I guess I'm most native, right? Like, I've spent a lot of my, I guess you could say, quote unquote, career in that state. Now, I believe so strongly in the network of who you surround yourself with, but also who you have available to you. It is so important. So often in videography, photography, social media, we see it in this super negative zero-sum game. Like, if somebody gets a client, they are stealing my client. Or you're in and somebody gets a win, but for you it's a loss, because there's a comparison. There's always, if someone's up, someone's down. There's so much more opportunity out there than we ever actually believe, but usually we are not willing to actually go out there and educate people to show that there's more in the market. Like, if you're just looking for the people who are problem aware, you're always going to be limited. But if you go in and you kind of allow others to have the opportunity to see that they have a problem and that you can solve it, that's huge. But in the aspect of the network, if you can't solve it, you have somebody usually who can, because everyone is struggling to some degree usually with marketing, or they want more leads. Like, there's not many businesses you go up to and be like, hey, do you want more clients? And they're going to be like, nah, I don't want more money. That sounds really bad. You know, like, in most cases, if you can get someone in front of more people and they can get more clients, like, if their system is able to not break in that process, they're going to be stoked. So there's a huge amount of opportunity in it. But often we're just sitting back and kind of waiting for things to happen, you know? And man, if you pull on your network, but you also build that in the process of your local kind of area, and you have people who are graphic designers, you know, let's say you have all of these different creative services around you where you can actually build teams and you can genuinely help prospects and clients to get to their goals because you have the ability to say, this person's an expert. We're going to get them in, and then we're going to get this guy who is an awesome creative director. We're going to pull on him. We're going to get a videographer from here, and then we're going to deploy that into your business. And we're going to get you a campaign that is going to absolutely crush for the next 6 months. Like you can pull on all of these different people, and it is so exciting when you can actually solve that problem and you're not reliant on doing it yourself because you have so much more confidence.
For sure.
Imagine going into a sale when, you know, let's say you've only got like a year experience, but the people in your network have like 5. And you go up to somebody and you're like, hey, look, I might not be the best fit, but I've got Johnny, I've got Sarah, and I've got Luke. I'm going to put them all together for you.
The God Squad.
Exactly, man. And like they can solve your problem.
Yeah.
That will build this incredible reputation because you're actually in it to help people. You know, that's the whole process. I think that's why I don't even see sales as sales, because it's like I just see it as helping people. I don't ever want to go into selling to sell someone. Like I just want to go in there and be like, hey, okay, can I help you to get to your goals? If I can't, I'm going to get anyone that I possibly can to do that for you. Like I didn't realize that for a long time. I thought that it was a massive weakness. I saw it as such a negative thing that I just wanted to help other people. You know, it was so hard for me because I'd been taken advantage of for ages.
Definitely.
I'd let myself too. But it's really funny what happens as soon as you actually begin to respect yourself, and then it is reciprocated by others. Like when you truly actually respect yourself, you value yourself, you know what you can provide to the world, that is, again, an underlying thing that is communicated along intent that people just feel. You can't say it. There's nothing that is said so that people can gather that. It is just represented. And it is incredible. That is the biggest thing I would say that has changed over the past 12 months. It is truly valuing myself and knowing that what I saw as a weakness is actually a strength, because I just want to help people. That is absolutely at the core of it. I just want to help people get to their goals.
And that's very true. I've heard, you know, from a lot of people, you know, in our same kind of network, you know, say the exact same thing, how genuine you are, how you want to help others. And then being around you lately, I can say for myself exactly the same thing. You're very genuine. You want to help people. You truly care about how can I help you. I just want to ask, like, you know, why do you want to do that? Like, why do you want to help so many people? Because I think it's such a good thing, man. But I just want to ask, like, where that comes from and why you want to do that. Because a lot of people, man, at the end of the day, are just so focused on themselves. So I think it's a true testament to yourself, and it shows you who you are as a person, that you care, not just about yourself and what you're doing, but all these other, like, heaps of other people on their journeys.
I really appreciate that. You know, it does mean a lot, and it doesn't go, unnoticed that you mentioned that. And
Yeah.
you know, I don't really think about it, to be honest. I just kind of do it.
Yeah. Which is probably
like,
just a genuine answer too. So
it does come back to a few different things though, right? So like that's always been my native state of wanting to help, wanting to provide. That is what I will always come back to. But there's also another side of it, right? Like at the start of this year, I said to myself, all I want is to get, you know, a consistent 10K per month, and I'll be happy because that's all I need. And then I hit 30K a month, and I was like, I'm not any more satisfied. Like I don't say that to, like, that's nothing. You know, it's really like, it's not a figure that's massive. It's a company structure. I don't pay myself that. Like, it doesn't matter. But it's like the figures don't actually matter. The goalposts will always change, right? When you hit a specific goal and it is tied to monetary amounts, it is always going to change. You will never be truly satisfied. Like, and when I say 30K a month, like, it's very aspirational, but it doesn't actually mean anything really. And I realized in that moment that I was like, I am not satisfied. I don't feel anything. Like, fantastic. There was a moment of pride because, you know, like 12 months earlier, I was not in a great position. But to hit that, I kind of just realized the goalposts are always going to be changing. At the end of the day, I was still out there trying to help as many people as I could. Like I was still, I don't like it. I don't like to say it as like coaching. I just try to guide people as best I can from the many mistakes that I have made, because at the end of the day, man, I have put myself into a lot of positions that have been not great. I've made many, many mistakes. I've done everything possible through that journey. And if I can give someone the steps so that they can avoid the pitfalls, that makes me personally super fulfilled, because it offered me so much pain when I was in them. And if I can avoid that for somebody else and just say, hey, don't go down that road.
Yeah.
That road.
Don't turn right. Turn left.
Exactly, man. Exactly, dude. And it's just like this map that continues to evolve, but you can just direct people so that their compass is continually putting them in the direction that will get them where they want to get to. But for me, man, like there's nothing more fulfilling than just being able to give somebody who's maybe only a couple steps like beside you. I never want to say up or down or below or above, because there's no such thing. We're all just out here trying our best. But if there's somebody out there who is like a couple steps beside you and they're potentially struggling to navigate a specific problem in their business or in their journey that I may have found a level of proficiency in, again, no expertise, but a level that is sufficient that'll get them past that bottleneck or that challenge that they're currently facing, I will do everything I can to help them. I will give them that on a silver platter and say, look, here is what you need. You know, and that's, at the end of the day, that's all that I really want to do. I just want to help people. I just want to progress so that I can provide. Like that's all I'm doing. And at the moment, I am in this rapid expansion of education. Like I am doing everything I can to consume knowledge so that I can provide it. Like that is my end goal. My end goal is absolutely to provide, you know, and for many years, again, I had this goal of just delivering it to other people. And I never had real clarity on what that was actually going to look like. It's starting to become clearer for me, and I'm super bloody excited, like super excited. And I think more than anything though, it's those little opportunities to just give a little bit of guidance, you know. Like I have people who are able to call me and just say, hey, I'm currently doing this, or I've just got this job in, or I have this, what do you suggest? And like I very much vocalize saying, I might get this completely wrong, but this is what I would do.
Yeah.
You know, like in my own state, this is what I have done. It has provided me with an outcome that has been good enough. And if I can guide you to get there, amazing. You know, like again, it's not saying that I have all the answers. It's just saying that I have one that got me through that problem and through that bottleneck and onto the other side.
And sometimes that's all people need, right? Is that reassurance and just having that someone to say, hey, you know, you're in the right path, but you know, this is what I would potentially do. So yeah, I love that. That's great.
For sure.
What's one thing that you would tell your younger self? It's a very cliche kind of question, but
Yes, man, I love it.
but
it's a good one.
but like it paints a picture, especially now hearing a bit about your story as well. So,
Dude, the funny thing is, like, I am almost telling my younger self every day different things. It's just not me. I'm doing it through other people. That's what I love. Like, I'm constantly able to, what I would say to myself, give to others. That's the biggest thing.
that's powerful. Yeah.
You know, like, because I am stoked. I am so stoked that there's no, I'm not saying that I went through major adversity, right? But the challenges that I did face, the ones that were heart-wrenching, the ones that absolutely critically nailed me into the ground and said, stay down, at least that's what it felt like. I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't change it for the world. You know, it's not like, it's not some resilience, you know, this isn't some massive speech of motivation for resilience and saying, get up. But like, there is so much empowerment in knowing that there's going to be challenges in your life. And there are potentially going to be times where it is going to actually axe you. Like, it's going to suck. You're going to sit on the ground for a couple of days. You're going to roll around in shit. It's not going to be fantastic. It's not going to be pretty. You're not going to have that, you know, classic story of what everyone paints. The picture of victory comes from getting up when you're sitting on the ground. Like, a lot of us out there actually just squander in it and like suck. Like, we get knocked down, and yes, eventually we pick ourselves back up. But you know how many times, like, a lot of the people who probably you aspire to be like actually just sit down for a moment and like aren't able to just instantly pick themselves back up and bounce up. Like, it's almost as though we have this association that we have to just bounce straight up, like hit the ground, back up. It is not like that. There are some times where you will just get brutally beat down. And I'm not saying you should, again, wallow in that self-pity, but like, it's okay to suck for a bit. You don't have to just have this legendary story of like bringing yourself back up, and then there's like, you know, just this theme song in the background. Like, sometimes you get knocked down and it sucks, and that's okay. You know, I wouldn't have it any other way. There's a lot of times in my life where it has sucked, and maybe I haven't been that, you know, that picture perfect person who just does brush their shoulders straight off and is just like, what up next, boys? Like, sometimes it hurts. That's the reality. And I don't think we ever hear about that. We just hear of the victory stories of people getting out there and just bouncing back up and saying, I'm ready for the next challenge. But it fucking hurts.
Definitely does. What's something that holds you back?
I am absolutely the one thing that holds me back, man.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
There's absolutely personal challenges. There's absolutely elements of torment within my own mind, as a lot of us face. There are a lot of demons that we'd like to say that we have slayed that continue to actually just linger in the background, almost in the dark of the night, when, you know, you can't see them, but you see their eyes like poke open in the darkness, and you're like, oh, you're still there. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things like that. You'd like to say that you've, you know, destroyed the devil that sits on your shoulder, but there's always aspects of it. You know, I believe that I've done everything that I possibly can to continue to build up this element of confidence within my own self and this ability to not care about what people think. But at the end of the day, there are these native states that we continue to crawl back to sometimes, which are our comfort places. And it is trying our best to every day recreate those so that they actually serve us rather than holding us back. And I think that's the journey that I'm on right now.
I love that. That's so good. Wow. This is a common question on my podcast. I ask it every episode. And every episode, the answer is different. That's why I love asking it. Define success for me. What's your definition of success? What does success look like and mean to you?
It is a good question, eh? It's really good, because I think it does matter. I mean, it does mean something different to everyone else. You know, success isn't something that I believe can even be defined with words. Like, I think...
Well, what does that look like to you in your world?
I believe that success for me is a almost two-part process where you are so aligned with your own purpose that it creates a fire within you to continue to drive toward challenges. And in the process of igniting that fire, you are able to almost transfer your light toward others who have a very common goal and a common purpose. And you really bring them toward your challenge together so that you can all work toward this common goal in doing whatever it is that you really want to strive to achieve. I think that is success for me. It is not a state of finishing, it is a state of progression.
I love that. That is so good. Again, so different to my last episode. So, oh my God, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. That is a powerful piece of, you know, just audio there. Anyone listening, yeah, really well said.
It's a funny thing, man, because like, again, you hit milestones and it doesn't mean anything.
You just keep going on to the next.
Like, what is success? You look at the definition of it, and so many of us, and it is a very easy loop to get caught into, that because our only benchmark of success is monetary. all that we have, everything around us. It's the only thing that usually we can actually calculate as well and drill down to a distilled number and say, oh, okay, I am successful if I X, because all we have as well is the comparison of other people. So we're only defining it based on this is where I stand in comparison to somebody else. You know, am I in the top 1%? Does that make me successful? Is it a comparison more so from where you have been to where you are? Like, is that success? I would say that's a better determined metric so that you're not constantly focusing on somebody else's life and you can actually focus on getting yourself to something that's really fulfilling for you rather than allowing someone else to define how you should live your life. But I don't think success is ever going to be a uniform meaning. I don't think it should be either, because we all have different values that allow us to live life in accordance with what we truly believe is important, you know, and there's no right way. There's just however environmentally we have conditioned ourselves, usually that indicates how we are going to define what success means.
So true. You in one word.
Tenacious.
Okay. Can you elaborate?
I have been more and more allowing myself to lean into, if we're coming back to the polarization of the characteristics that come in that hypomanic state almost, I allow myself to lean into the ones that serve me. And I often will see a problem and tenaciously, almost at my own detriment, try to attack it with everything that I possibly can. And I'm trying my absolute best to lean into these positive attributes or positive characteristics and qualities so that they do serve me. And I think tenacity is the one that I've realized is commonplace throughout everything that I have been doing in the past 3 to 5 years. You know, it is this relentless pursuit. It is a passion that is just so strong that it drives me to these challenges where I go ham, like all in, like pretty intensely in almost everything that I do. And a lot of people say, maybe you could find some balance. Maybe I could. Maybe I could. But I'm pretty set on really at this point in my life doing everything that I can to get myself where I'm really going to be able to enjoy that process of balancing the activities while still getting myself to where I want to get to. Because balance only exists if you want it to. I've heard it once before, and it's almost the counterbalance rather than the balance. Right? Like when you're in that state, it's not like you go and you say, okay, my week's looking like this. I have to make sure that I'm going to work for 3 days and I'm going to rest for 3 days. It is often, especially when you're running your own business, that you have to just have these periods and these bursts of going super hard, solving a problem, and then having the counterbalance. That counterbalance could be completely correlated, so 6 months on, 6 months off. It could be 12 months on, 2 weeks off. Whatever works for you to counter it enough so that you feel fulfilled. But if you personally, i.e. me personally, if you personally just build this association with work and with problem solving, that you can just go at it for 12 months relentlessly, and you only need, say, 4 weeks to fill your own cup, go for it. If you need 1 month on, 1 month off, go for it. There's no right. And I think that it consistently changes as well. Like I will go through periods where probably, I have 6 weeks on, 6 weeks off. And when I say off, I still mean that I'll be working, but just not like 60, 80-hour weeks. I think that it's very different when you run your own business, because usually if you're in the starting phase, or you're just doing your own thing. It's on you. No one's going to move no one's going to move it unless you do the work. So I think, it's funny, man. That's how I'd describe myself now. I've been through those battles. I've been through those challenges. I've seen balance. I've done it all. And now all I want to do is just tenaciously drive myself into the challenges and do everything I can so that I can learn and share what I learn.
Thank you for sharing and elaborating that. That's really well said and well put. Thank you. This is the What's Your Why podcast. So I ask everyone that I get on, what's your why?
Man, that makes so much sense that you would ask that question. What is my why, man? I would say at the end of the day, my why is becoming more clear each year. All I want to do, all I have ever wanted to do is just serve other people. And I think that's where I get the most fulfillment. That's natively what I come back to. I think environmentally I've been conditioned that way. And again, for a long time I saw it as a negative. But I've started to lean into it and see it as a strength. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all going to come down to. My why is to provide as much as I can to other people. Whatever way that I possibly can, that's going to be what guides me. And at the moment, I have an unfair advantage in one specific area because that is where I have spent a lot of my life. And that is at the moment in content and to a degree in small business. I'm nothing special. I haven't absolutely solved the world's problems. I'm not, I'm not super educated. I'm not some guru, but I have at least solved a few of the problems that do come up. And for me, as much as I possibly can, I want to help other people so that they don't face those same challenges. Or if they do, they at least have a guide for something that can help them out.
Yeah, wow. That's awesome. I love that. This has been a new thing that is super original as well. No other podcast does it, but basically we get the last guest to ask you a question. So,
is that that sounds original?
No, it's not.
That's not
It's not. That was sarcasm. I swear, every podcast I listen to does it. So I just thought,
I love it.
I'll use
I love it. You're gonna put me on the spot, then, man. I've got to be prepared for an.
This is like a podcast multiverse kind of thing. So
Love
like
it.
the last guest, he's asked you this question in the future, and this was done in the okay,
Phenomenal.
It's trippy. So you ready?
I love that. Is this kind of Inception?
They ask you, and I like this. Like putting the script together, I was like, I'm keen to hear your response because I think this kind of correlates as well.
Awesome.
So what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail?
I don't think anyone can fail, man. You only fail if you give up. What's the definition of failure?
Yeah, it's true.
Just to put a little side note there.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't believe in failure whatsoever. I believe in people quitting.
Okay, yeah.
Like failure is not an option if you just continue to put yourself into a state of evolution. You just constantly go towards the challenges. It's only when you give up. And it's also, imagine if there was no such thing as an association with failure in a negative sense. Imagine if it was just positive. Imagine if failure was seen in a positive light. Imagine if failure was the win because it was seen as just the hurdle that you had to get over. Like if failure was perceived in a positive light, imagine how many times people would actually go in more relentlessly to challenges because that failure would only be seen as the learning opportunity because that's all it is. It's just the negative association that people have with that simple word that then stops them and creates the opportunity for them to fail. Otherwise, it's just evolution. But getting back to the question.
Bro, no, I love that. That's so well said.
What would I do if failure wasn't an option, man? Or if I couldn't fail?
Yeah, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail at all?
What would I do if I knew I couldn't fail at all? Man.
Because hindsight's a crazy thing, right?
Absolutely. That's a great question. Like this guy, he did some research, man. ChatGPT absolutely gave him that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, he's a pretty switched on person. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. I'm a fan, dude. I think that what I would do is can't give away IP, but no, what I'd do, man, I'd definitely create just an ecosystem which serves people in every single manner, where it has a complete waterfall tiered program level business, which has every single opportunity to provide a solution for really the parts of business that I have built a level of awareness in. So it is in that lead generation aspect, but having every single component of it nailed with experts who can absolutely solve those problems, so that I can help the people who are out there doing awesome work and helping others, so that indirectly I can have a positive impact on other people. You know, like those companies out there who are making a serious impact on the world, who are helping other people. If I can get them more of their ideal clients, so that they again can serve more and have a larger positive impact, like that's my goal personally. And then where I can have another component of that to really guide people into that company, and then give them the platform to inject them into the client's work, like that's my ultimate closed loop ecosystem, where it just is helping everyone, but there is obviously going to be a component of it where it just continues to build through that specific core mission that people can rally around. That's my one thing.
Dang, I love how passionate you get to when you speak about that. You can tell you're so aligned to that idea, and when that speaks through, you're aligned, and you're going to achieve that. So it's really cool to see and listen to that and watch. I can't wait for that to all unfold for you over the next few years and support. So yeah, it'll be great to see. Is there anything in this podcast that you would like to speak about that I didn't really touch upon or bring up? Anything that,
I think a lot of my focus at the moment is on, a lot of it is on the people who are just starting out in business. Like that's really what I've very much been putting a lot of my attention into, because I've been revisiting it personally and trying to understand how I overcame the challenges, and again doing that, a lot of that guidance. And I think the thing is, I want to just quickly touch on the fact that when you are going from a place of having security in a job in a 9-to-5, and you're transitioning, whether you're 18, you're 38, you're 58, it is going to be super scary leaving that security. But there's two parts to this. Number one, so frequently we have a negative association with security. It's not actually bad. We have just been conditioned to believe that everyone, quote unquote, should be in business. There's nothing wrong with having a 9-to-5. It is glorified to have a business, but it is also super damn difficult. Like, it is not for everyone. So that's one component of it. But if you are somebody who is determined, you believe that you can have an impact on other people, and you really want to give it a go, there's really nothing stopping you. And there is an abundance of opportunity. That is all that I can reiterate. There is a massive amount of opportunity. If you want to do it, you can do it. Honestly, there is really nothing stopping you. Like, we have so many resources available. As long as you actually want to do it and you're constantly putting in the work. This comes back to that whole thing of doing the reps. Like, if you're actually doing the reps, but you're also doing it to learn, and you're iterating every single time, like, there is nothing that can stop you. There's absolutely no reason why you can't do it, and you can't supplement your income. I believe that you should have some level of a runway before you leave, so that you're not just like full back up against the wall.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people, you hear the stories of people being like, yeah, man, you just need a bit of pressure. You just need to back up against the wall. This guy who's saying that, man, like, they're probably they're probably killing it, but it's not the native state of everyone. And I think it's okay to accept that too. It's okay to say like, all right, I'm not that guy who sits there and needs their back up against the wall to perform. I'm actually going to be okay with a bit of security because I didn't give myself a security. And again, I wouldn't change anything, but it would have been probably pretty good.
Yeah.
And there's times for that. Like I wouldn't change anything, but there's definitely a time to have the security and have the kind of extra assurance that shit's going to be all right. I think for me, it gave me that pressure so that I did perform at times. But man, like there was a lot of it that was just shit. There was a real lot of it. So yeah, look, man, just like if you want to do anything in this life, you hear it all the time, but it's actually true. You can do anything that you really, really do want to do more now than ever. It's like it's so accessible. And that's a 30,000 foot view. It's not giving you any practical advice, but I'm sure if you really want to do it, you will find the practical advice. You can 100% make it happen. Whatever it is that you're passionate about, truly try and chase it. And if you can't directly do that exact thing that is your passion, pick up a camera and film it because you're then going to be correlated with that passion.
What a great way to end our episode number 5 in our chat. Really appreciate you, bro, hopping on and sharing your story and your mind and insights. I think you're a really remarkable person with a lot of great values, and a lot of people talk highly of you, and now myself, I think the world of you and what you're doing. So thank you. I appreciate you hopping on this episode, and yeah, I hope you guys, the listeners, enjoyed. But yeah, thanks for hopping on, bro.
Appreciate your time, brother. It means a lot, man. It means a lot.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.